Got the buttons going. Everybody, hearing is okay? Awesome. Very good. Very good. Well, I'll keep my eye on the admit button. But I'll start for you guys that are on. And thanks for coming and joining in with me live. And I know that there's some questions that were put on that folks were saying they're going to be watching us on the replay. So welcome on the replay. Hi to you all, if I don't know you all by name. So I'm going to start with the questions on the doc in the, I'm sorry, the infographic in the app. I don't know, you guys, Tanya, Celeste, are you guys app users? Yes, cool. Everyone's in for the app too. Awesome, awesome. So on the graphic in the Buns and Guns group, for those of us who are joining as part of the coaching for from the Buns and Guns group. So Linda Jean asked the question on that group infographic, and then I'll skip over to the ones on the Facebook one. So it's Dr. Rachel. I'm just getting back to cardio and strength training after 6 years. I hate to admit, nope, no, that happens, Linda Jean. That's the way life rolls. But my body is showing this slack, LOL, rhymes with fat. With the Buns and Guns program, is it normal to need more than a day for recovery time in menopause? And I'm doing the 3-day training program. Yeah, for sure, Linda Jean. So, you know what there's a bunch of things that change in this time of life, and I'm sure that for those of you experiencing it, I'm not telling you anything new, but I'll help to give you the physiology of it that'll help you just feel a little bit more normal about the whole thing. So for Linda Jean and anyone who has kind of similar concerns as they're getting back into training after being away for a while, there's just a lot of things that change in this perimenopausal period. And to be honest, they change slowly over a good 10-year, 15-year, maybe even 20-year period of time. Only they hit a critical point at which you are more sensitive to the changes, and you start to feel more symptomatic of it. So the changes that we're going through hormonally is really the change in the estrogen and progesterone balance, because the ovary is failing. So as the ovary is failing, she's sometimes making too much estrogen and sometimes making not enough estrogen. And sometimes she's making progesterone and sometimes she's not. I would never say that we really ever make too much progesterone because it's not under the same kind of regulatory control as estrogen is. But there's so much crosstalk going on into what makes estrogen balance in the body that this is a period of time in which things are all over the place. And for some who've listened to our Ask a Doc calls before, I liken this to when you get your period as a young adolescent. So I always have a ton of sympathy for young women who are beginning to have a change in their estrogen, and there's something going on and they just don't know quite what it is. And of course it comes out to their moms or to their family in very strange ways sometimes. But if you can remember back to what it was like to be a 10, 11, or 12-year-old girl, and you're just starting to notice these raging changes in your mood, and you really have no idea what's going on. And at that time in life, you really don't have the capacity to understand or regulate emotions that you do as you start to get older, and then you realize you start to lose that. But it's also a time when the ovary is being tremendously inefficient, and that's why the moods are all over the place for our young girls starting to get their periods, because the ovary is starting to learn. So she's making sometimes too much estrogen, too little estrogen, maybe not making any progesterone to balance the estrogen. And so this goes on until the ovary starts to mature and she gets her rhythm rhythm correct, and then we all start to adjust together between our ovary and ourselves, and you start to even out. And you also learn a bit more resilience as you grow into your like early 20s. These changes don't affect you as much because you're becoming more resilient. You have other faculties to fight against it. But then as the ovary starts to fail in the late 30s, early 40s, this can be a very tumultuous time hormonally and emotionally because it's a this all over the place kind of feeling. And all the changes are going on with those hormones. And again, that's the balance between estrogen and progesterone. So very high levels of estrogen at times can leave somebody feeling quite anxious and not being balanced by progesterone, which is typically the more soothing of our hormones. So this can be all over the place. So what does this equal for us in the perimenopause and menopause part of life is like, well, again, this is kind of going on slowly over time, but then it hits a critical point where it's like the perfect storm, right? So the hormones are starting to go wacky. And so that starts to become uh, changes in your sleep. Changes in your sleep then can make you a little bit less resilient to hormonal fluctuations or to emotional fluctuations, and make it harder for you to recover when you're not getting good sleep. And that will lead you to also feel, in these years that you're more tired during the day, more emotional, and so overall having difficulty with this part of life. And so how does that relate to Linda Jean's question? Well, Linda Jean's question asks is specifically giving us the background, but then saying, is it normal to need more than a day for recovery time and menopause? And yes, I think that this is a time where some women will notice that it's just they don't recover as well from training or as immediately from training because your body has to rush in and do the recovery part. And some of that is anti-inflammatory. So kind of repairing the inflammation, the good inflammation that's caused by the workouts to build muscle. So you may need just more time for recovery. This relates also to recovery in general, and I think that that can be a little bit more difficult in menopause, not just from a sleep perspective, but the way that estrogen affects the inflammatory response in our bodies overall. And so this theme will come up actually a few times today. I was giving it a lot of thought because a lot of the questions on the Facebook graphic are related to this as well. But it's this whole common theme amongst the questions that are coming down to some of these inflammatory and recovery response. And so with Linda's question, I'd say for sure, it's definitely normal. Take the time that you need. And you might find that you are more stressed from a program like this than you would have if you had done a TSV program 6 years ago, because if you're not getting as good a sleep as you were in the past, that it might make it that you need more time, perhaps during the day for recovery, that maybe you need to space out workouts. So I love that the 3-day training program, which is a great idea. If you're struggling with this yourself, is that having maybe devising a schedule that works well for you, that's a day on, a day off, a day on, a day off. So that gives you more time to recover between exercises, and being certain that you're getting enough time in between body parts for the next training session. So for example, if you're doing 3 days a week and you're doing Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and it's a push pull legs, you don't want to do push again for 7 days. So that you're not working those same muscle groups too quickly, so that you're getting plenty of time for those muscles to recover before you put them under strain again. Again, every time you do this, you're inciting the inflammatory response again, which is a good thing, but you don't want to overdo it if you're not able to recover as well. So, Linda, let us know that that answers your question or if it brings up more questions. But I think if you listen through to the end, your question is very similar in theme to the things that had come up on some of the other questions as well. So I'm just going to pull up the graphic from the Extreme Menopause Body Makeover. Those of us who've been together for the last 6 months and to the group where that graphic goes. Here we are. And I'm going to just start from the top on these. And again, I think we're going to keep hitting the same message in a lot of the questions, but I think that bringing it up in different ways is a good way for us all to get something out of it as well. Oh, Celeste, here you are. You're the first question. Excellent. There you are. Cool. I've been in menopause for 3 months. Last period was 1 year and 3 months ago. So saying that menopause was at that 1 year mark. I developed rosacea. I just looked this up for you on my cheeks for the past 2 months. In your opinion, is rosacea related to low estrogen? And would hormone replacement therapy be a reasonable treatment option to consider? So my first instinct, Celeste, when I read your question was yes. But I just wanted to make sure it was backed by science. So I looked it up. So rosacea is an inflammatory skin reaction. So, like many actually, skin reactions are inflammatory. We always were taught in med school that the skin is the outward sign of inner health. And so that a lot of things that we see, rashes and the like, can be a sign of things going on the inside. And so, again, similarly with rosacea, rosacea is inflammation in the skin, and it's dilation of the blood vessels that give it that red color. And that gives it the name rosacea. And so it does seem to have a correlation with flares or flares and symptoms in perimenopause and menopause from the hormone fluctuations. What I was reading was supporting the idea that actually there may come a time post menopause when your hormone levels have stabilized, that it would actually improve. But again, citing it was pretty much a very individual thing, like, whether it gets better, gets worse, etc. But if you found that it's gotten worse, you certainly could imagine that it's related to the lowering estrogen levels. I think this also comes from the idea that estrogen herself is a anti-inflammatory hormone. So she helps to actually mediate or, like calm down inflammation in the body. So without her, we can see a lot of inflammatory conditions be flared. And so like different times in a woman's life, she could be much more sensitive to autoimmune conditions because of elevated inflammation, be that related to different levels of hormone. We see this in pregnancy. So some women who have pregnancy because of the hormone levels associated with pregnancy. And so this is definitely another time in life, this perimenopause into menopause transition, that your hormone levels can lead you to having more inflammation, and these low estrogen levels are associated with an increase in rosacea. And in what I was reading, it did support the idea that hormone replacement therapy may in fact help to mediate this response or dampen this response that you might be seeing. So it may be worthwhile to talk about with your provider, if you have other interest in taking hormone replacement therapy and it's just the one thing that knocks you over the edge, great. I think there's a lot of benefit to hormone replacement therapy. You certainly have to search your soul for whether it's the right thing for you. But I think what we'll learn in the next several years is as we see more and more benefit, that we can actually begin to cite those benefits as a reason to start even without symptoms. But it's been clearly indicated for the treatment of vasomotor symptoms of menopause and for the prevention of osteoporosis. So those are what we would consider FDA approved uses for hormone replacement therapy. And so certainly something like, for example, with osteoporosis, something that you would start early on to prevent something far into the future. So as a preventative medicine. So if you were interested in starting hormones for other reasons or for the rosacea, I think that it's certainly something to consider that might make the condition better. So I'd say go for it and speak with your provider or a knowledgeable provider, somebody who's comfortable with prescribing hormone replacement therapy for sure. Celeste, I hope that helps. Oh, you got it. Perfect. Any more questions that come up, for just throw them in the box for me. Um, so Melanie's question takes a little bit of a hook turn, but I think it'll kind of bring back, it'll be in our theme of menopause. But Melanie's question is, how can I get rid of a liver cyst? Why would I have it? I wasn't given any type of plan. I may have had one alcoholic drink a month. I have lost my way with my health and fitness plan after having falls and a right thyroid removed and a torn rib and cartilage, etc., etc. Poor thing. Sounds like a terrible few years. It's like a cascade of health things. Tired of seeing doctors. I take no offense. I get it, Melanie. I feel a bit down and can't seem to get things right. The liver is the heart of health. I need to start my plan at the beginning because going around in circles and has done me no favors. So she adds that she's had a hysterectomy, but she still has her ovaries. So Melanie, I don't know if this is good news or bad news, but I don't believe your liver cyst has anything to do with anything. I wouldn't say anything, but a liver cyst generally we think of as is kind of just being an unlucky thing. They're usually pretty benign, which is also very reassuring. Most liver cysts are something that we just watch. The biggest problem is that they take up space. So like, right, it's taking the space for healthy liver tissue. And you don't ever want to lose parts of healthy liver tissue. But overall, if a cyst has not increasing in size, not causing any other problems. She's a relatively benign thing that just has to be watched. Truth is that I couldn't tell you why you have it. Some people just have them for no good reason. I'd say, there are some people who are have an associated uh, I would say I guess genetic is the right word, or inherited predisposition to having cysts in many different parts of their body. Kidney cysts or liver cysts can be common, but often thankfully benign. Again, the biggest problem is they take up space of healthy tissue. And so we want to make sure we keep the tissue around her healthy. So being protective of your liver is always a good thing. So I'd say, Melanie, definitely you should feel that the liver is the heart of health because she is. She detoxifies the body. We want to make sure she's healthy. She's a good filter for getting rid of the crap that we don't want there. And she's particularly great at burning fat. She stores fat, but she's also there to burn fat and to move that through the system. So yeah, you want to keep your liver very healthy. But your liver cyst is probably second in thought to all of that. But I think you'll feel better in general, Melanie, about like feeling like you're not letting yourself down if you just do get back to your health in general and in small ways. Don't try to jump in all at once and beat yourself up, because a beaten you, I love this from Kim, a beaten you is not better than an unbeaten you. So definitely don't beat yourself up for all the things. But I do believe that just getting back to some basics of your health will make you feel better about the whole thing. But I wish I could give you a good explanation, but it's nothing I'm certain that you've done that caused liver cyst. She's just a one of those things kind of thing. There are some liver things that are associated with taking different medications, but as far as I understand it, a liver cyst isn't associated with having done anything wrong in the past. But I know you can get definitely into this, like, as you were saying, and you can feel it in your question, this sense of like, oh, I've lost all control. As I'm getting older and I have to see a doctor for this, and I have to see a doctor for this, and I have to see a doctor for this. But honestly, that can happen at any age. But if you can just like get your your self-centered back on to your health in a very unstressful way, because that's not going to help. That will help you to feel better overall. And no offense, I think that being able to keep doctors away by writing your health in good ways is just fine. I'm happiest when people, I say, when I haven't seen somebody, I say, well, it probably means that they don't need me, which is fine. My goal is to ultimately not be needed. Because if I was making people need me, I wouldn't be very successful at what I do. So for sure, unless they're coming to see me for their hormone therapy, which is just fine. They have to come manually for that. But all good. And Melanie, when you listen back, if it brings up any other questions, please, of course, feel free. I think that I'd like for y'all to be able to go back to tagging us. I don't know if we lost that. I'm going to talk with Laura about it. I feel like sometimes like I might be missing some of your questions in the group because there's so many different groups and such. And so I think I'd love, and I welcome that if you tag me directly. I log into my personal account at least once or twice a day, and I'll see it there. Because when we're all answering now as team sculpted, it can get a little bit harder for me to know if somebody needs my advice directly. But and I'm happy to help in any way that I can. So Tanya's question, so Tanya states, I've been on MRT or HRT, so menopause replacement therapy or hormone replacement therapy. MRT, I think, is becoming the new, even here in the United States, the new way to class this class of drugs. Anyway, nonetheless, over the last 5 months, and I'm using the maximum amount of pumps, which is 4. So that's for the estrogen, and 1 progesterone pill. I've slowly had to increase over the months due to perimenopause symptoms returning, anxiety, depression, night sweats, dizziness, etc. As I would increase the pumps, my symptoms went away. Now that I'm at my max and the symptoms are showing up, now I'm at the max and the symptoms are showing up again. Not as bad as it was before starting, but they're there. Is there anything else that I could consider taking to help with this, or will this roller coaster ride continue until I'm in menopause? I'm also curious about testosterone. What is the need for it? And I just read an article about helping with knee issues in perimenopause, which is what I really struggle with for the last 8 months. I'm seeing a specialist in a few weeks. Thank you so much for your time. You got it. So Tanya, great. You are already headed in the right direction. Um, so it's not at all uncommon, Tanya, for it, when you start hormone replacement therapy in the perimenopausal period for, oh, I'll get to you next, no problem. When you start hormone replacement therapy in the perimenopausal period, you're starting while your ovary is still making some estrogen. And so you're supporting your natural estrogen by taking the extra estrogen during the perimenopausal period. So I'm not surprised to hear that, as you're going along in time and your ovaries failing more and more, that your need for the estrogen is going higher. I mean, I would say honestly, Tanya, I don't know that 4 is the quote unquote max. It's the max perhaps dose that is recommended for that product, but you might not in fact be getting the max, obviously, of what you need. If you're starting to feel symptoms, you may in fact need to either change the product of the estrogen that you're needing, or in fact go over the 4 pumps. Who's to say that you couldn't use 5 or 6 pumps just because it says that 4 pumps is the max prescription. So I think it'd be a great thing to discuss with your specialist coming up. They may have an idea of a product that's absorbed better by your system so that you're getting more reliable amounts of estrogen from the product. They might, in fact, just say use more of the one that you've been using. That's a fine idea as well. And all of that seems to be great. But you certainly see, it would seem to me from what you're describing that you're just needing more estrogen as your ovary is making less and less. And, yes, that will soon level off when your ovary just completely fails and you're clear, and then you're sincerely menopausal, right? Because then you're at that point, 0 from 0 is 0, right? So you're not going to make any more, but you should be able to then get to a steady state where you're taking the same dose of your medication for an extended period of time. So you've asked a very interesting question about testosterone. So I would have to admit, and I've admitted before, I do have a much more limited experience with prescribing testosterone, and also being keen on what specifically to, which symptoms to treat it, to treat with testosterone over estrogen and progesterone. Mostly only because it's not something that's available to me commercially, in the sense of like from a pharmaceutical company, something that I can prescribe. All of the testosterone products in the United States are actually intended for men, for male hormone replacement therapy. To be completely honest, the products that we do have as a gel are maybe some of the weaker ways to get testosterone. I think for many men on testosterone replacement therapy, they're taking injections. Some women are using testosterone as pellets. This is because taking an oral testosterone is not going to be as helpful. It doesn't get absorbed as well that way. And so some of the creams may not have adequate absorption as well. But again, my experience is limited, when it comes to testosterone, but it's been used, at least I think more recently, for symptoms of depression, brain fog, and the things that kind of we think of also as being estrogen related, because the amount of testosterone that a woman makes is made kind of secondarily to the primary hormones in our system, and they go down in conjunction with estrogen. So most of the time, estrogen replacement has been used for these symptoms in women, at least for those of us who are more mainstream. You certainly might find, Tanya, however, that your provider might be very keen on using testosterone and for very specific symptoms. Be definitely worth talking with them about it. I wouldn't know that it would specifically be used to treat like knee issues, for example. I think that it might be because it might support the muscle health, or tendon health, just in general. But I'd say most hormones are going to do that as well. So estrogen, apparently our joints are very sensitive to the estrogen loss as well. So those joint issues can be associated with estrogen as well. So I don't know that replacing testosterone has any specific benefit. So I'm going to take a quick break from the graphic here and answer Mixkey's question. We still look like we're running pretty good on time. Cool. So I'm going to read out Mixkey's question for those listening to us. I can't find a compounding pharmacy anymore that my insurance covers. Sorry, rolled too fast. That my insurance covers, so not using hormone cream anymore. Instead, I'm taking DIM. Is that enough? Could my fat girdle be due to menopause or just months of wine, baguettes, and cheese? Good question. So, Mixkey, it's actually disappointing that your compounding pharmacy isn't available to you anymore. I would say this is pretty darn common, that generally, if we use a compounding pharmacy for any of these hormones, patients struggle to get them covered by their insurance because most of the time their insurance will cover the FDA approved compound over the compounded pharmacy products that are made in the compounding pharmacy lab. So that's not too uncommon. A shame that you went from your compounding cream to nothing, because there certainly could be a pharmaceutical that would help you, make you that could give you the same comfort as taking your the compounded product. But you're there. So the question about DIM, is that enough? To be honest, enough for what? And what do you notice taking DIM, and what was your goal behind taking the DIM? So DIM is a product that's used to help balance estrogen because it helps with the breakdown of old estrogens in the system. And so again, this comes down to estrogen balance. And so that it's helping to keep the estrogen, oh, hair loss. So it's helping to keep the estrogen balanced in the system. And so that's what DIM is doing. And some people will find benefit from taking, and some people won't find any benefit at all. So when it comes to abdominal fat, though, Mix, I'm sure it's not your first name, Mixkey. It's that abdominal fat comes from the change in estrogen metabolism associated associated with higher insulin levels, and that's insulin putting fat in the cells around the organs that make our secondary estrogen source. So the fat girdle can be from wine and baguettes for sure, but it also can be from menopause. So that fat deposition change is very common. It doesn't necessarily get better with compounds like DIM. It does help to, again, clear out some estrogen toxins, which is good, but it doesn't necessarily get to the abdominal fat. What they've Hormone replacement therapy, as far as like fat metabolism, has shown to slow this progression in storage of fat around the organs, but it doesn't. It's like, whereas it slows that progression, it doesn't necessarily make it all better. So they did show that when women started hormone replacement therapy soon after menopause, they didn't see as much of this change in fat metabolism to increasing the fat around the organs, or this visceral fat that's very hormonally active. So if right now your main symptom is hair loss, this is interesting because it's actually come up as well. I don't know how DIM would specifically help or hurt with hair loss. So I don't believe there's any negative effect. I have not seen anything about DIM that shows that it has a negative effect for hair loss, but hair loss is a very common complaint in menopause, and I'll explain why. And I'm going to also weave this into someone else's question that came up about hair loss. So yeah, so actually it was the very, very next question that was on our list. And so Guy, I'm gonna get Mixed Guy, I'm gonna get this with this one as well, because I'm gonna give you a little back physiology on hair and why this is important. So Joan Bing's question is so she's saying she's been in menopause for about 2.5 years, and she started hormone replacement therapy about 2 years ago, so about 6 months after menopause. She's noticed a lot of hair loss, and she's saying about 30% of her hair, 30 to 40% of her hair volume. And I'm sure this is starting to sound familiar for many of us out there during that time. Taking both biotin and iron supplements. Blood work is normal, except for borderline high cholesterol and low iron, which I'm addressing with diet and a supplement. She was advised by her family doctor that hair loss is not permanent, but as time passes by, it continues to thin. I have a question that my hair will about what her hair returning, recognize some level of loss and thinning is inevitable, but what I'm experiencing is more than that. Any advice or insights you can offer? For sure. And then Michelle just adds under Joan's question, she's been having the same problem, and she's using some clip-in hair pieces for it. But definitely, this is definitely a big issue in menopause. So there are certain times in our life, throughout our whole life, reproductive life, that you might notice big changes in hair volume. And one of the two big ones are right after pregnancy and in menopause. And this is because the physiology of this is very, very similar. So big changes in hormone levels will cause hair loss. So that can be for, a lot of different reasons. So like, for example, it can be when you're younger and you have some kind of stress or nutritional deficiency that keeps you from getting your period for a period of time. And then that's a period in which you can see a tremendous amount of hair loss. Right after pregnancy, because during pregnancy, estrogen levels are super high. Right after pregnancy, estrogen levels plummet. And then we have the prolactin that's increased to have milk production. and the like, which keeps estrogen levels quite low in that postpartum period in order to supply milk to the baby. That's a time when there's a lot of hair loss as well. And then after menopause, you can see a lot of hair loss from like a tremendous drop in the estrogen. So estrogen supports hair growth, and then when you take it away, you see a lot of hair loss. But you did mention two very important things, Joan, that are also associated with hair loss, and that's vitamin deficiencies and iron deficiencies, so vitamins and minerals. So because hair is, yeah, again, kind of another one of those things like skin, it's actually, they're just specialized skin cells. It's an outward reflection of inner health. So when things are not right on the inside, when there's vitamin deficiencies on the inside, you can see hair loss. And iron is a big one. So some women where perimenopause is also associated with very heavy menstrual cycles. They can be very iron deficient without realizing it because they're losing so much blood month to month. And that can also lead to hair loss. So now you have a double whammy. You have the hormonal dysregulation, low estrogen levels, and then you have anemia associated with it. So definitely supplementing iron is very, very important because that will then kind of help replenish that hair loss. So there is some replenishing of the hair loss. And so it is encouraging to continue to take the supplements, maybe not as robustly, Joan, as it was when we were younger, because then that would be supported by having the high estrogen levels in addition. But you do all the things that you can to optimize your hair uh, regrowth as best you can. So that would be the hormone replacement therapy, certainly, which you're on, supplementing your iron, being sure that you're getting the vitamins that you need, the B vitamins and biotin. Also, Joan mentions very in here as well that she had all other blood work that was normal, because the other thing to always be very mindful of is that thyroid dysfunction can also cause hair loss. And so if your thyroid is low, your hair can be lost. So you always want to make sure that all of those things are going well. So Mixkey, I would encourage you to just ensure that all your blood work is up to date with your just your regular screening stuff. Make sure your thyroid is good, your iron is good, all the things that just help to support growing healthy hair. And then I don't know that specifically DIM in this case would help, but hormone replacement therapy can be helpful. There are also other prescriptions that can be helpful for hair regrowth. So if it's certainly something that you're that's bothersome, you may want to see a dermatologist who can prescribe some medication for hair loss, or your family doctor might be comfortable prescribing medications for hair loss. Off the top of my head, there's minoxidil, which we think of for men for Rogaine, but it is actually quite effective if you can tolerate taking it, because it can affect your blood pressure. Um, if you can tolerate taking it, it can be effective for hair regrowth. Some very good vitamins on the market for affecting regrowth. They are some of them will affect the hair follicle similar to the way as like finasteride, which is a prescription, does, because what it does is it blocks testosterone in the skin. Not as much of a mechanism of hair loss for women that are yep, not as much for a uh finasteride works well for men because it's more of an androgenic hair loss. So Mixkey put in here, just put this in my water to get some iron. Excellent. Taking Nutrafol, very good, vegan formula. Nutrafol is actually one that is well rated for helping to support hair regrowth. Um, yeah, minoxidil, yeah. So minoxidil is the oral tablet for Rogaine. You can use it topically on the skin, right on the scalp, or you can take it orally. But yeah, it does affect blood pressure, so it's not something that everybody can tolerate taking. I can't see this label. what is it? Oh, multiple minerals. Yep. Where'd you go? Oh, I saw the image for a second and then it disappeared. Oh, there we go. Okay, now I can read it. Perfect. Calcium, iron, excellent. Iodine, that supports the thyroid. Magnesium, spectacular. Selenium is supposed to be very good for hair regrowth. Excellent. Looks good. Yeah, looks like all good things in there for sure. Nothing that I would be concerned about taking. Excellent. Good. So yes, that's unfortunately um about the best we can do. I understand you completely. Except all my hair loss I was complaining about is sits for me behind me. So I don't see it, but if I look to the back of my hair with a mirror, I can see it. So yeah, it was something I've been talking with my doctor about as well. But when you find the solution, ladies, you let me know. And then we will all get rich quick together when we have the solution. Very good. But those are the things. Just make sure everything on the inside is perfect because our hair is the outward reflection of what's going on the inside. But it is physiological in menopause with the drop in estrogen. So for those of us who were blessed with very much hair in the first place, we got to take very good care of what's here for sure. Okay. So we got Joan's question at the same time, which is perfect. Oh, poor Chris. She comes up next, and Chris says, I'm always tired, feel run down, taking menopause MRT, gel and progesterone pill. I sleep fairly well. Might wake up once, but often sleep through, but just feel so tired. Is there something I should get checked or something I can do to combat this? My thyroid and other bloods come back normal. I would say, Chris, what is very important is optimizing to the best you can the sleep that you do get. I think that many times we can think that we're sleeping through the night, but we might not be getting the restorative sleep that we really need. Sometimes the sleep deprived sleep, which feels like, oh my gosh, I could like lay down and sleep for like a log, and but when I still get up in the morning, I still feel like I haven't slept. And it's because it's the quality of the sleep that's lacking. And so I would say, Chris, um, without any specific data, you'd want to look to see, what you can do to optimize the sleep that you are getting. Um, it might also be that you don't have enough of the estrogen and progesterone or progesterone, and you're not getting that restorative sleep. I don't know if you track your sleep in any way, Chris. I mean, although the best tracker is how you feel in the morning, no matter what a tracker says. But you might want to see you play around with different things to see what you can do to actually help yourself feel more refreshed in the morning. So a few weeks back, or maybe have only been last month, yeah, that was a few weeks back, we talked about optimizing sleep by starting first thing in the morning. And it sounds silly, but your nighttime sleep quality is related to what you do, the very first thing you do when you get up in the morning. So having an excellent morning routine that works you through to a really great evening routine that winds you down for an excellent bedtime routine that then supports this natural cycle. So you want to get onto what it is your cycle. Many of us will think that we are night owls, so to speak, but we're actually robbing ourselves of the most restorative sleep that we can get, which are in those hours before midnight. So the most restorative sleep that you get is in that precious time before midnight. So if you're getting into bed at midnight, you're robbing yourself of that restorative sleep. Or if you're only getting yourself into bed at 10 or 11 o'clock at night, when you could perhaps push that up, you might get more time in what's really restorative deep sleep that might help you to feel more refreshed in the morning. So it might be that you lay down and you don't get up, but you're not getting the restorative sleep that you need. If you spent the entire night in what would be called a light sleep cycle, you might wake up not feeling very refreshed at all. Also, perhaps looking at what it is you do in the evening, even as far as like supplements and our caffeine in the evening that might be prohibiting you from having an excellent night's sleep. So maybe making a cutoff for caffeinated beverages earlier in the day to see if that helps improve your wakefulness in the morning. So you'll know you're doing well if you can wake in the morning and feel 100% refreshed. To be honest, it's common with the amount of activities that you're doing, provided you're doing a program like this, is that you might actually feel tired in the afternoon, and that's okay, as long as you feel that you're getting good rest and can wake up refreshed, and feel that you at least have a fairly energetic first part of the day. But you definitely hit the things that, we would have mentioned, as well as making sure that your thyroid and other things are showing signs of excellent health. So if you're in excellent health, I would focus on what you can do to make sure that you're getting good quality sleep. And if you find that you are, in fact, getting good quality sleep, it's always worth speaking with your provider about, what else might be affecting your sleep. One very important thing as well is sleep apnea. So, if you do, if you're not waking feeling refreshed and you're having a lot of times throughout the day um, where you're feeling like you can doze off at any moment. The other thing to be mindful of is whether you need to be worked up for sleep apnea, which can keep you from getting a good night's sleep, where you go to bed and you're so darn tired, you fall right to sleep, but you don't get the good quality sleep because you're actually waking yourself several times throughout the night. Maybe not to the point of arousal wake up, um, where you wake up conscious that you woke up, but enough to keep you from getting good restful sleep. So that's definitely something to look for as well. But optimize your sleep from the minute you get up in the morning, getting good sunlight, in the evening, getting the opportunity to turn the lights down low, work with low lights, make sure that you, not make sure, I'm not going to sound like I don't want to sound like a doctor, but I would recommend like blue light blockers on devices to keep you from activating the parts of your brain that will just keep you up or be activated when you're supposed to be getting good sleep. Having the night shades on your device, if it's a setting on your phone that you can set, so that it goes down to night vision or night shade, whatever they call it on your phone, or device, so that you can turn down that blue light that will interrupt a good sleep cycle. And just supporting your sleep circadian rhythm the best that you can, for sure. And watching for eating too late at night, because some people will digest too much in their sleep, I should say. Their digestive system is working too hard in their sleep, and that will keep them from getting good restful sleep. So if you are sensitive to any of those things, you want to watch for that for sure. So Mixkey adds here, oh, Mikosi has been key for me. An eye mask with the Bluetooth speaker for binaural beats. Excellent, great suggestion. So Mixkey is recommending um, also binaural beats, which is another way that helps to like get into good sleep rhythm, or good phases of sleep. I like binaural beats for studying and focusing on tasks. So they're useful for lots of different things. And I would say also, I wear an eye mask. I find as well it's helpful to block out any ambient light in the room, which can like again, one of those things where you feel like you're sleeping, but it's just enough light to interrupt a good deep sleep cycle. So I wear an eye mask as well. This doing this pressure behind, if you put on your eyes, actually helps to, when people do this when they're stressed, it helps to regulate your hormones. So when somebody does this, maybe consciously or subconsciously, they're pressing in on this nerve behind their eyes that actually helps to activates the pineal glands. It can help to increase the sleepy hormone melatonin. So pressure on your eyes, so wearing an eye mask, is the point I was trying to make, helps to support your melatonin release, for you to get a good night's sleep. So some people will find that very, very helpful. So there's always this, honestly, I love this. I love science. I am such a dork. I love the physiology behind some of these things that we think are very silly. They were all spirited by something very, and I shouldn't say all. Many of them have some very scientific spirit behind it, why they work. Things that we can do naturally, like pinching our eyes, um, that will help you to release that hormone, that relaxing hormone, from your pineal glands. But then, of course, there's the eye mask. Well, we used to, we were creatures in the wild where we didn't have to worry about sunlight or moonlight or trying to sleep with the street lights on and things like that. But yeah, now that we have the modern advantages, we also have to fight back with some things like cut blocking out the light with our eye mask for sure. And here I am at 9 minutes of with only one question left. I love it. This is great. I don't have to go too crazy on my Peloton in the morning, answering questions as I don't usually get to everything. I'm quite proud of myself as I waste another minute making sure I haven't missed anything. So Autumn's question. Oh, wait, nope, I don't wanna do this wrong. I got 9 minutes for 2 questions. Now I got nervous. So Maiken is listening to us on, replay. She says, because she's in the UK. Her question is, that she has some type of joint pain for the last 2 years. I do love this question. Seems to move from one, hip to both hips, one shoulder, now my knee. Although MRIs, X-rays, and et cetera have all been diagnosed with tendinitis. I suspect as I am approaching menopause, 6 months without menstruation, that it could be due to low estrogen. Bingo, Maiken, you hit it right on the head. What is it specifically about low estrogen that causes these aches and pains? Is there something other than HRT that can help? I love this. So this is this is because of the same as we started this conversation with rosacea, with Celeste's question. This is also inflammatory. So when you describe an arthritis like Maiken is describing, that's migratory. It goes from one joint to another to another. This isn't the typical pattern of somebody who has osteoarthritis. This is the typical pattern of somebody who has an inflammatory arthritis. So this is because estrogen, again, is anti-inflammatory. And as estrogen levels lower, we're more susceptible to inflammation, and our joints are absolutely a place where inflammation will go. A lot of autoimmune conditions are associated with arthritis, because the joints are very sensitive to inflammation. It turns out that some of our joints and ligaments have actually very high amounts of estrogen receptors, and they're very sensitive to the drop in estrogen levels. So I was very curious as to why postmenopausal women are more susceptible to adhesive capsulitis, or what we call frozen shoulder. And this is because there's a very high level of estrogen receptors in the synovial capsule around the shoulder. So this is like because of low estrogen levels. Um, Hormone replacement therapy, of course, can help, but to be honest, also any other anti-inflammatories. Turmeric is an excellent anti-inflammatory supplement, or curcumin, depending on where you are in the world, what they call it and what you have on the bottle. So curcumin or turmeric are very good anti-inflammatories. Other things also supportive of anti-inflammatory, tart cherry, rhodiola, but anything that supports inflammation or that is more anti-inflammatory can help with joint pains as well. But it is related to low estrogen levels. Okay. So Autumn Martinez asked, this is good. This is very timely. So if anyone has joined the Buns and Guns challenge, she says, I have very intense cravings for bread when dieting. Bread, very specific. Currently doing buns and guns. I crave sweets and sugar, but I can usually ignore those with no problem. But the bread cravings make me feel like I absolutely need bread or I'm going to die. She gives herself a LOL for that one. If it happens to be the week before my period, it's like there's no hope at all. I must have bread. Does this sound like potential vitamin deficiency, or is there anything you can recommend to help? I'll be watching the replay. Thank you. I love it, Mixky. Mixky is with you, Autumn. Bread, bread. I love bread for sure. So actually, I would imagine autumn, to be honest, it's just the carbohydrates. It's a fast way for your body to get the carbohydrates. It may be one of those things. Oh, Celeste, real quickly before I lose you, it's what I saw the other day was 1,500 milligrams of curcumin. So I would say you may want to see what the equivalent of 1,500 milligrams in curcumin is in turmeric. That's the one thing I will admit is very hard about some of the natural supplements is finding the right dose. But what I did here was 1,500 milligrams. So hopefully, when you look at the products, that makes sense to you. And if I find something, I will let you know as well. If I find a good turmeric that kind of hits the mark. But that was what they said the other day when I was looking through. I'm sorry, back to the bread. I don't know if it's a really good time to talk about bread. Even if you're buns and guns or no buns and guns, bread is the devil. Because it's just such a fast acting carb that any of those extra carbs are going to be processed right into fat. But I would imagine, Autumn, to be honest, that it's a little bit of an interplay between actually a physiologic craving, because you're craving the carbohydrates at a time in which you're under stress. So cortisol is going to cause you to crave it's going to cause you to crave carbohydrates, and it might just be your hot button carbohydrate. Some for me it wouldn't necessarily be bread. I probably lean to the cookies or chocolate, but it is usually just a physiologic response to the stress. But and our brain, when we're missing carbohydrates, is going to tell you you need them until you like kind of detox them, right? So when you start any program and it's new, the while your body's getting rid of those carbohydrates, it's going to tell you that you need them. So usually, especially like 3 days after having a good all-out carb binge, as those carbs are being burnt from your system, your body's going to tell you that you need more. Our brains exists exquisitely on glucose, so your brain is going to do everything it can to get you to have it because it is the best nutrient for the brain, and it takes more work for the brain cells to actually use other sources of energy. And so when that's why, like, in times of stress, it's going to be like, give me the bread, give me the cookies, because that's going to be the fast acting food source for our brain when it just needs a little g up. And so dieting, of course, is a time of stress, where you'll feel a carbohydrate uh, craving. For you, I think honestly, Autumn, it's just that you prefer psychologically the bread over the other things, but I don't think it reflects any um, vitamin deficiency. There's no vitamin carb that you might be deficient in. There's certainly nothing in bread that you're not getting from everything else. I would have to admit to you that I don't think bread has any nutritional value apart from those fast acting carbs. So, no, no potential vitamin deficiency. All I would say is that what does help is not having them and allowing your body to switch to a secondary food source. So when you're not getting the carbohydrate, as in when you're getting less of it in the Buns and Guns program, you're eventually your brain will give in and she'll have to rely on a secondary food source. Usually, having a good amount of protein in your diet is key, because it helps to decrease cravings overall, because it's very satiating. So if you have that protein in your system, it's very satiating. Rest assured, your body will make the carbohydrates that you need, because our liver is very good. There we are about the liver again. Our liver is very good at making glucose when needed to feed the brain. So the brain is always going to get her way in the end. She's just going to rely on the liver to do her job in order to feed the brain, so that you get that glucose that the brain needs so very exquisitely. But I think I did it. I did it. Look, top of the hour. I got through all the questions. But again, I do, yay, I did it, Tanya. You see, you've stuck with me, and I finally did it. But certainly, if any part of the if you're listening back on the replay, if any part of this you'd love more clarification, a much more specific answer if we touched on something that brushed up against something that you're experiencing, but you just want to get a little bit more clarity on it, just feel free again to go ahead and tag me, and I'll find it in my on my personal page. It might be the easiest way to make sure I don't miss it for sure. Mixkey, the oh, liver support. There you go. What is it? Let me just peek at this real quick. Yeah, so it's N-acetylcysteine, milk thistle. I don't think I've heard of the tubeca. Astrin. Yep, that looks good. I like it. That looks great. Liver support looks great. Go for it. Um, but if I can answer any questions in the group, feel free to drop me a tag. And I think you can still tag me in the app as well. I think you can find me on those tags in the @ symbol on those too. So thanks for another great evening, ladies, and I will see you again in another month in this group. But we'll also be doing a Q&A starting in the sculpted menopause group. I think we just changed the names. I don't want to do it wrong. So I think that the sculpted menopause group, and I believe that the sculpted menopause group is a free group still, and I haven't lost track of all the different groups. And we're gonna do a live Q&A on in that one on the opposite weeks of this group. So they'll turn out to be two Ask a Doc calls a month. So I'll be here for all of your listening pleasure. And thanks for joining me live. I love the company. And thanks again to those who are catching up with replay. And I'll see you all very soon. Be good. Bye now.